Welcome to Between the Cracks. Today, we're going to be talking about what's in between the cracks with both Tao Teaware and Wonderful Tea. My name is Dart, and today I'm joined by
Derek from Wonderful Tea. What's up, guys? Ooh. So here's what I'm doing. I'm drinking some white tea out of a Yue Chao Gaiwan. I think this hits both of our recent drops. For
yeah, yeah.
Wonderful Tea, we just released a lot of new white teas, and one of the white teas we're not even selling it yet because we're still kind of on the fence about it as far as the quality goes. This is a white tea we made ourselves, or the flowers we picked ourselves, and then it's from tea that we commissioned and pressed into these crackers. But I think Alex thinks the tea quality is not so good. It's
Mm.
from Guangyang out in Fuding. This is the guy that typically does a lot of brown chomei, and he just does a huge amount of it. And Alex was saying this tea flower cracker, we picked the flowers and dried them ourselves, then added them to this white tea. He thinks the tea itself tastes a little bitter, not so good. So we're just giving it away for free this drop.
I saw that. That was pretty cool. And honestly, I was a little bit jealous. Like, dang, I wish I had like a good idea like that for our drop. We do have, I guess, anybody who orders an order that's above $80 is going to get a free flight. You just have to add the gift of the flight of all of our tea balls for the year. But I was like, dang, when I saw that, I was like, oh man, I wish we had something like that. We don't. It's how Teaware doesn't. We just have some awesome new handmade pieces from Yue Chao, which I, I always get people on both sides of the fence, and we'll probably talk about that a little bit later.
Because, like you said, it's kind of hard to talk about it without feeling like you're shilling for it. But it's like all
Yeah.
of my gaiwans that I use, like on the daily, all of like the brew cups and like the master cups, like these are all Yue Chao. Like
Yeah.
he is just my go-to guy. Just beautiful pieces every single time, breathtaking, one of a kind stuff, and it's just like I don't care. Like he's all I want.
All right. We can brag on UHL later. One thing I wanted to ask you. So I was doing the YouTube video for Bitterleaf's Iwu. They have the year of the right, and it follows the zodiac. So this year was the year of the dragon. This was the one where I have 8 or 9 years of this tea cake, all from the same small village. But the interesting thing that I wanted to talk about when I was thinking about that came up in the reel or the video when I was making it is talking about like if somebody's just getting into pu'er. Because for me, I mentioned you gave me a really, really old, it was a 2010s Huang Pian cake. And originally I thought I liked it because it was mellow, because it was an old tea cake and it was Huang Pian, so it was a little bit softer, a little bit, and it wasn't. Going back, I thought about it when I was making the video, and I was like, hey, or maybe it was before the video. I was like, hey, I bet that's an Iwu cake. Like after drinking through a bunch of Iwu this last year, I was like, I bet this is an Iwu cake. And like I think for people who get a really like sour, or bitter, or just really the punch you in the face kind of puars. Like if somebody would have been like, hey, drink some Iwu when I had that experience, I kind of wish that I could have given that. So I wanted to ask you your thoughts on like if we could break it up into 3 or 4 or 5, not the villages, not like the micro plots, but if you had to break it down into kind of like big taste differences and mountain ranges, how you would break it up for people.
I'm happy you said like not the specific gardens because that's immediately where my mind went. I'm like
Yeah,
Iwu, like
yeah,
okay,
no.
you have the national forest, you have the high mountain. Let's see, you have the honey flavor, flower flavor, like, and so even within these micro regions, it gets deeper and deeper. And like for
Yeah.
instance, like Bitterleaf, they just released a boha tong, which I'm so excited. I really really want to try that one because it's like one of the hardest to get like core regions of Ewu that just cost so much money every time. But
Okay.
I think Ewu is, one of those you have to check it off your list if you're exploring pu'er tea because Ewu is
Yeah.
incredibly gentle, very sweet, very delicate, and has those kind of micro nuances within it that I feel like are a little more mm, acceptable if you're new to pu'er drinking. Other
Hmm.
stuff, I would say go the other way. Go over to in Monghai, go down to the border, get bulong. Some of that bulong
Bulong,
stuff
yeah.
that's
Bulong is
usually,
rough.
yeah, it punches you in the face with flavor, with bitterness, with that huigan, with a lot of flavors, a lot of things going on in it. For me, I
Yeah.
think that's really exciting because they say like there are three main big things in like the famous tea mountains in Pu'er. There's Bingdao, Shigui, and then Laobanjiang. Bingdao
Yep.
is sweet, Shigui is fragrant, and then Laobanjiang has that punch you in the face power. And I feel
Yep.
like, it'd be really difficult if you're new into tea to get like actual Laobanjiang, but what you could do is you could get that Bulong, which has a similar punch you.
Yeah, two things with that. One, I think that's way more useful. I think saying try Bulong is way more useful because like how many people are gonna go buy just like Yixing pots, right? Oh, I bought like a $40 Yixing pot. Okay, then it's not an Yixing pot. Like you can call it whatever you want. It can be a cool pot, but it's not an Yixing pot. And I feel like it's probably the same with Shigui or any of those other like
Yeah.
really famous regions. Like you're gonna try and get it for 10 cents a gram, and you're not actually gonna get the character that you think you're getting because you can't buy it for that cheap.
Yeah, I mean, like when I first went to Lin Song, you know, like Paul and Jonah from Bitterleaf, like Paul from Y2T and Jonah from Bitterleaf were both like, stay away from Shigui because it's just hard to get the real stuff. It's too
Mm-hmm.
expensive. And so it's like, okay, like, but I had a good connection. I went right to the mountain, saw them making the
Yeah.
tea and I bought it out of their warehouse. And I'm like, okay, like I feel pretty confident with this. But like
Yeah.
you said, like to just give somebody who's new to Boer that impossible task of finding the right, a legitimate source because there are so many fakes on the market, unfortunately.
The flex doesn't really matter. Like it doesn't really matter if you've had
Right.
Shigui or not. It's do you know the taste? Do you know
Yeah.
the profile that you're trying to get down? And I think that's the thing for me that I'm like I want to be able to recommend to people more. Bulong though,
So,
you mentioned it
yeah.
being bitter, but it's not. It doesn't remind me of like sour, like our Linsong tea, right? Like our Linsong Shang is like we called it the Gatorade pu'er, right? It's got that like kind of lemon
Oh,
lime
okay.
Gatorade like essence to it. Where would you go? I mean, I'm assuming probably Linsong.
So actually, for me, I think that sourness you're talking about, especially the stuff that I'm getting out of the Lin Song, that is more minerality. And so the expression there is more saline. It's more salty. It's more like like seaweed briny. And for there, I would go over to Mong Song. And so
Mm,
Iwu, if you're looking at Shishuanbana, Iwu is the furthest east, and then Bulong is really far west, and then kind of in the middle
okay.
you get Mong Song, in Mongsong, you get Huaju Liangsa, you get Naka, you get a lot of this region that's really famous for its minerality, and it's almost like salty soup. And so there you
Mm,
get Iwu is like that really sweet, gentle stuff. You get that middle stuff
mm,
that's salty. You get Bulong, which is really powerful. The Chachi is really strong. And then if you want to go up to Linsang to get something really just sweet and floral, it's a different thing than Iwu, but I think
mm.
if you make this circuit, you can kind of tell the differences between those.
Yeah. Okay. I like that. I like that. That's a good. I need to check off some in that middle region more. Yeah. What'd you say? Mungsong and Naka.
Mongsong. So Mongsong is like the larger region, and then you have Huaju Liangsa, and on the other side of
Hwajulang.
Huaju Liangsa, you have Naka. And so
Okay.
I pressed two Huaju Liangsa cakes, the Tree Spirit and the Motorbike, last year.
Mm,
And so for me, those are my homage to that really saline, that like salty soup kind of stuff.
cool. I'm gonna have to try it out. I'm not gonna lie, salty doesn't sound good to me. I do, but if you say minerality, that gets me the tingles. But salty, just it's like when people talk about certain wines and you get like the cat pee. It's like yeah, it's what it tastes like, but like is that really what you like? That's what the salt description
Yeah.
does for me on
I
that.
mean, I hear people call it briny, and I'm like, ugh, but still, it checks
Yeah,
out.
I don't know if that's better. Yeah.
Better than
Cool.
cat pee.
Cool. Okay. Yeah, yeah, better than Cappy. I feel good about that though. I feel like that's a good. You want to go down the line? There you go. There's your 4 lines. Go pick something from one of those. Cool.
This white tea is not so bad. It's light, it's sweet. I get a little bit of the flower, but not too much. I don't know why Alex didn't like it so much.
Is he like really into white tea?
Not so much.
Not so much.
I think he's just like sensitive.
So I had this one guy, Justin. So he he tried the guilty grub, right? Our show puar. And it was funny because I was talking to him about some show puars, and he was saying how he really liked the guilty grub. And so we actually did a little trade here, and he sent me I don't know, like 10 or 15 samples of different teas, the groupings that he would categorize show puar. And for me, I'm just like, that's one of the teas, and I'm like, they all taste the same. I don't
Oh, wow.
really like. I just please someone show me. And so he actually sent me this. But it's funny because on the other side, he reviewed the white teas, and he was like, yeah, like they're good, but I'm not really into white teas anymore. And it's so
Oh.
funny because like for me, the guilty grub, it's like it's a good clean show puar, but like they all kind of taste the same. So I think there's always that preference that goes into it, outside of true like quality itself.
Yeah, that's interesting. So he's really into show pour, and so he liked the guilty grub. Cool. Yeah, so that makes me feel good as well because I'm the same way where it's like a lot of times like, and I do this with yancha with Wu yancha, the
Mm.
roasted oolong. I know
Mhm.
what's bad, and so like I can, and I have a sensitive palate for that. Where even people were like, "Oh, this is really expensive. This is my highest quality." I drink it. I'm like, it's got sourness on the edges. I don't like it. And so when I'm
Mm.
sourcing, I'm looking for teas without that sour edge. And then it's
Mhm.
like, okay, those are the ones I'm buying. I don't care what price it is. Sometimes they're really cheap. Sometimes they're more expensive. And so a lot of the teas on our website for the yancha, it's pretty cheap. It's like pretty affordable, and I question myself. I'm like, am I just buying like really bad yancha that that I like? And then it's like at the same time, it's whatever. If I like it, I can sell it. It's fine. With a guilty grub, where it's like, yeah, it's a good show pour, but is it like, yeah, why is it so good?
It's cool that you can tell the difference and you can pull them out when neither of us really drink show pour. Like I don't think either of us will be stashing tongs of the guilty grub, but the fact that like, hey, somebody likes it who is really in the show also made me really happy to chat them up. And again, now I have these teas. I'm excited to start trying through. I tried 3 of them so far. 2 of them taste the exact same. I was like, I literally like you just said just I couldn't. One of them was like a little bit rougher, I guess. I need to go back and taste it again.
So yeah, so one funny thing that this reminds me of is when we first started like buying teas before we started
Mm-hmm.
using like, my connections that are pressing the teas, and we're trying like a whole new different style where I'm like, okay,
Mm-hmm.
like let's just talk about this exporter that can do like EU standard, organic standard, really
Yeah.
big Chinese exporter. And we looked at their wholesale list, and it's one of those wholesale lists that has like, oh, here's the Tiaguan Yin. You have A, you have double A,
Oh,
triple A,
yeah.
quadruple
Yeah.
A, quintuple A. Like, which
Yeah.
one do you
Yeah. Yeah.
want?
Yeah.
And like the prices
Yeah.
are all different. I'm like, is A just worse than double A? Like what are these characteristics? There might be like an actual rubric for it, but for me, I'm just like, there's way too many choices.
Or you like speaking back to the price ladder, talking about how you should only have like 2 or 3 things, and like when you have 5, it's like who what is this? What does this mean?
I mean that's definitely what I felt like. Where I'm like,
Yeah.
if they had, and so yeah, so let's do the thought experiment. Like if they had two options, I would probably pick the higher option. If they had 3
Yeah.
options, I would pick the
Most
middle
people would.
option.
Yeah.
If they had 4 options and 5 options, I'm lost. Like,
Now you have analysis paralysis, yeah, and you don't know what to pick. Yeah.
and it also makes me think about like, okay, like I don't know, why are you offering the same tea, just different qualities of it at slightly different prices? I feel like it's just too much, because it's basically saying like, oh, I have this really nice tea, and then I have the same tea that's like not as nice, and then it just goes
Yeah.
down and down and down. I guess I'm
So
fortunate with One River Tea where I'm just like, my market is that higher market, and so I could just be like, show me, I don't care about all these lower grades, just give me the highest stuff, and then I'll see if the price works.
so funny enough, this is actually what I wanted to talk about with Yue Chao, where we have kind of both sides of that we had happen within the same week. So I had somebody comment on YouTube saying, "Hey, all of your unglazed pots, I heard that they were Alibaba ripoffs." And I went and I looked at all of our unglazed pots, and I was like, there's not a single one that isn't sourced handmade from a friend that isn't like a $30 pot that says factory made, like right on the thing. So I thought that was funny because I was like, well, most of them aren't. But then on the other hand, today or yesterday, I had somebody who actually sent an email after I sent the release for the drop, the UHL drop, and literally like the response was like, "Why are all of your teapots so expensive?" And I was like, the Yuechao stuff is expensive. Like, there's no, we pay a lot for it. We make less money on them, but like, they're really, it's the stuff we actually use. But it's funny because I think back now and I'm like, we have plenty of cheaper stuff on the website, right? Like, if I had a $30 Gaiwan next to the $160 Gaiwan, would that person have been like less inclined to like, feel any sort of way about it? I don't know. I mean, I don't really think we were focusing on Yue Chao, so I think we should have focused on him. But it's just interesting, like the perceptions of that. Like if you go on our website, most of our Gaiwans are factory made and are $30 to $40, but the Yue Chao ones, there's just no getting around that price.
I think maybe the issue there is there's no in between, right? There's no like middle ground But at the same time, what would the middle ground be, right? I guess it could be the apprentice pots, right? It could be somebody who's not like a ceramic master who's making it, right? So you look at
Yeah.
like the Zhang Yan Chao pots versus the apprentice pots, and there's a price difference there. However, like that's a difficult niche to fill because you don't want a really nice factory pot or a really bad handmade pot, which would
Yeah,
fall
and
in the middle of those. Like
that was exactly I was talking about it in the reel I don't know, yesterday or 2 days ago, how it's easier to get almost perfect factory guy ones, like close, like they're still not going to be perfectly fitted, but like really close, than it is to get handmade ones that fit well. And I think that's the issue, is like when you get a really expensive factory pot, I'm like, I don't really want to sell a pot that we just like bought from a factory for 80 or $90. Like to me, that feels like we're gouging someone, ripping them off, even if that's like what we would have to charge.
right.
But at the same time, yeah, if we had somebody who could make them for like 70 or $80, but you pick it up and it pours worse than our factory pots, just to say it's handmade also feels
Yeah.
like a loss to me.
Yeah, and I another thing is like a lot of these more masters, like with the names, with the Mienza, with the face, with the studio, with the respect, they don't do wholesale really. Like they'll do wholesale in the way where I'll make you a batch of pots, but this is the price. And it's like,
Yeah.
oh, if I buy like 50 pots, is it cheaper? He's like, no, 50 pots means you tie up more of my time and more of my energy. Yeah, I guess you can't just make 50 doesn't mean you'll make it faster, right? And so it's like, yeah, you buy 15 pots and here's the price. You buy 50 pots, that's the same price. Yeah, Chow is the same way. Like I've always tried to ask them about discounts. Like previous years, I've been working with them since like 2019, and the only way I can get a discount is if it's a second.
Actually, so that brings you've been in more cities. You've seen more prices on pots at studios. I see pots that go for, 30, 50,000 US dollars. Do you ever see gaiwans that are that high?
That's a good question.
When we get those Tsinghua or those Celadon gaiwans, and what do you think those are going to be? Maybe 250, maybe 300 from based on what he's charging us for the bowls?
Yeah, I didn't even dare ask, but yeah, that would be higher than Yue Chow, I'm sure.
For sure. Yeah, definitely more than 160, because I think the
just the cups, yeah.
Yeah, because the fine china, like these bowls are 120, right? These bowls are 120, right? So you have to imagine, like, if we're getting a gaiwan, double that maybe. I don't know.
And coming from a national master in Jing Dejian, who's the heart of Tsinghua porcelain, like, yeah, I mean, you can't check more boxes than that.
And that's the hard thing, I feel like, is like I've seen some like Akira. He's a pretty famous like chawan maker here in Western North Carolina, and he started. I was talking to Ben Gufford. He's a teacher who's been doing pottery for like 20 years. He actually sent me this. Hold on. He sent me this really cool. It's like a tea bowl with a stand, very similar like Bunchang style to like Mark style. So he's a teacher in Western North Carolina, and him and I were talking about maybe heading up to meet Akira out in like the greater Asheville Seagrove area. Akira, when he was making his chawans 20 years ago, they were $100, couple $100. Now they sell for $2,000 because people are paying for art and they're willing to pay for the art. And so we're in this like weird position where chawans are definitely, they've taken on more, right? More people have, I feel like, probably taken like the Japanese matcha tradition in than gaiwans as we are right now. So people right now are only looking at this from a functional perspective, but the floor for the functional and attractive art piece is still very high.
I think it's very fascinating to think of, like, yeah, I see really expensive teapots, but the amount of like really expensive gaiwans I see are few and far between. It reminds me of Chaozhou. Like in Chaozhou, it's like most of the people are not using really expensive teapots or really expensive teaware. They're using the stuff that is, less than $5 for a whole set. And then if it breaks, it breaks. And you'll see just a bowl full of, 50 different cups, and they're all just that same tiny like Chaozhou porcelain. And I feel like this is pretty common the world over. I mean, I know a few people that really are collectors of fine gaiwans, but really the teapots are where it's at.
I think honestly, we have these coming in, right? These are on the boat. Not this cup. We're not going to have these again for a while. But this color, right? This glaze, the blue and pink glaze from Leo. I think the set that we have from him is a good. It's like $100, $110, I think, for the gaiwan, the pour cup, and the bowl that it comes with. And I feel like maybe that's an okay answer for now. Definitely something we'll keep looking into. Like Yue Chao's already recognized, and you've talked about like if you want something out of the kiln that he just fired, you have to like reach out to him that day.
That's the same for like a lot of the Chaozhou potters, like Zhang Yin Chao and stuff, where it's like, yeah, like he doesn't need us. Like he's doing
Yeah.
me a favor because I have this connection. He's doing this guanxi with us, where it's like, okay, I'll let you buy my stuff. If I don't buy it, somebody else will immediately. The amount of leverage we have to be like, oh, can we get it at a cheaper price?
I think that's why Jesse's so cool, right? Where it's like there's so many more people who know what a Gaiwan is because of him, right? And so in 10 years and 20 years, the work that he's putting in now will make it so that more people, when they see, a Ye Chao kind of level Gaiwan, are gonna be like, oh, okay, that's that level, right? Whereas like right now, it's like we're still at the point I feel like in general where it's like, what is that thing? Or like I'm afraid of using that because I'm gonna burn my hand, right? Like I feel like that's still overwhelmingly the sentiment rather than like, oh yeah, that's just a Gaiwan. Like it's just a part of the daily like life and tea world.
I just released a tea cake. It's the Gongmei tea cake. I call it Gatekeeper, and it was the wrapper design was made by a 12-year-old who just loves tea, and he listens to tea soup and everything, and he drew this design. I slapped it on the cake, and I'm like, you know what? This is the idea that like tea is for everyone. Tea is for anyone. You don't have to know what you're doing. You don't have to be an expert. You don't have to spend 10 years researching tea before you can start enjoying it. If you're into it, get into it. And then if somebody else is into it, let them into it. And I feel like Jesse is doing a good job for just getting a lot of people that have never heard about tea into tea. We're kind of in a little rabbit hole here. The longer you're into tea, the more you're just like only talking to people who are really deep into tea, and you're only just doing these really deep cuts into all this tea scene. And so yeah, it's great to have somebody who's like jumping the borders of what is that different audience, right? And drawing people in.
Yeah. Speaking of which, I had a thought. I was talking to Lulu and I were sitting down. We were eating, I don't know, some kind of citrus, probably just oranges or something like that. And she was asking me about pomelos and dragon fruits. And I was thinking back to our conversation that we had last week about TCM, right? And how things that have more sweetness are typically going to be Shanghua, right? Adding fire. And for the longest time, until literally last week, I was thinking about any of the colored heart fruits. My whole family, like me, Rachel, Lulu, have always been like, they're just objectively better, right? Like the purple inside dragon fruits, so much better than the white inside. The pomelos, the like orange or like grapefruit colored inside versus like the off-white color, right? Anyone that in Chinese, it just says red, right? It's just Hong. But like anyone that is the inside is colored is just objectively better. We would always wonder why. Why would they sell the white if the colored was a little bit more expensive and if everyone else agreed with us? And I was wondering if it was due to the TCM, like the white cored dragon fruits and pomelos were more Qinghua, and like the purple and the orange hearted were more Shanghua.
Yeah, that's an interesting distinction. I think dragon fruit in general is just Shanghuo. Like I think
Yeah,
like maybe like the red versus white, it would be a matter of degrees, right? So like the red would be
fair.
more Shanghuo. I think you are
Yeah.
right though. Like the red is sweeter, and it would
Oh, for sure.
probably
Yeah.
be more Shanghuo. But the pomelos, I feel like they're fairly similar, the white and the red. And yeah, I think the dragon fruit's really interesting because yeah, it seems like everyone does prefer the red dragon fruit. Um,
Yeah.
and so it's like it goes back to that A, double A, triple A. Like why have
Yeah.
these options if everyone's just obviously the red one is better.
Here in the US, you can't find pink cord dragon fruit, and they're like $7 a dragon fruit. So we're getting like
Ooh.
the worst version, and it's still an absorbent price because it's getting imported.
When I lived in Chaozhou, I had an apartment. And the apartment cost it was $100 a month for the apartment. It had like two bedrooms, a kitchen, and a rooftop, like a rooftop garden, right? And so I would just walk up through go out through the kitchen window, climb up this
Yeah.
rickety staircase, and there I would have this whole garden with like a little patio with like an overhang, and so I'd boil tea out there. And I was picking through the garden, cleaning it up, and I saw this what looked like cacti, and I was like, "Oh man, don't mess with the cacti for a while." A few months later, they started blooming, and I realized that they were dragon fruit. And so my balcony, the rooftop on this $100 apartment, probably created 20 like rich red dragon fruit that I had to fight the birds over, because as soon as they would get ripe, the birds would come and start eating them. It's wild to think, yeah, like just how common it is down south in Guangzhou or Guangdong, and then how difficult it is to access in America.
Same along the same line of thought. My father-in-law was out and he took a picture of this plant and he didn't know what it was. He thought it might be passion fruit. We looked at it and we're like, well, it's not the right color. Like it looks like passion fruit. And we're like, maybe it's just not ripe yet, but it's not the right color. It in fact was like a variation, that not the one that we eat, but it was the fruit was the same. It was just a different variation of the passion fruit. But I saw this reel the other day about somebody who was saying, if you really like passion fruit but don't like the seeds, here's how you get the seeds out. In the back of my mind, I'm just like, that's like half the experience. Like half of passion fruit is the enjoyment of the seeds. I was just like, why would you ever? I mean, again, if you want to take your seeds out of your passion fruit, go ahead. But like, that was just like, I was like, oh, it's so strange. Like, I don't know. Like I've never had passion fruit in the West. It was always like in some sort of drink or in some sort of something like in China.
In China, they'll also, like, when they have a passion fruit in drinks, they'll leave the seeds in it. And so it'll be a crunchy, chewy drink that you're doing. So let's continue this trend. This is funny because when I was home, I introduced durian to my whole family, and they had some mixed reactions. What's your thought on durian?
It's the same as every Chinese person. It stinks, but it's delicious. Have you ever had durian ice cream? I'll let you go back to yours, but have you ever had durian ice cream yet?
Yeah, durian ice cream, durian pizza.
The pizza, Chinese pizza. It's not that I don't like it, but when you want a cheese pepperoni pizza, don't go to a Chinese pizza place because I don't want sweet mayonnaise on my pepperoni pizza.
Yeah, I mean, like I get my durian pizza from Domino's, from Pizza Hut. It's a different market. They have like Beijing roast duck pizza from Pizza Hut.
Oh, dude, it's so good.
Yeah, but no, like durian is fantastic, and it's like the funniest thing. It's like it smells like natural gas. It's super stinky. The texture is like custard, and it's like this savory mix of, like, it's a little sweet, but then really savory, really nutritious, and really expensive.
Yeah.
And so it's a lot of people just hate it because it's like, like it smells bad, it tastes bad, and it's expensive. Like, why do people care about it?
Honestly, though, the first time I had it as ice cream was when I was sold. I was like, this. Oh, yeah. I didn't notice the like custard notes, like custard-esque parts of it, until I had it as ice cream. And it was, I mean, to be frank, we're just talking about freezing it and eating it like that, right? We're not doing anything fancy to it.
Oh, wait, what? So you're not talking about ice cream. You're not talking about no, frozen milk.
Correct. No. I'm talking about like just freeze durian and eat it like it's ice cream. I was gonna say
that's my more favorite style. Is like, I've had durian ice cream, but it's not as good as just freezing a durian. And I think that was similarly one of my conversions. Actually, the first time I had durian, I didn't like it, and then the second time was in Thailand. It was on the trip. I think Nicole bought some Thai durian, and we just ate it on the bus. It was like 30 degrees. It's like 100 degrees outside. We're just eating this stinky fruit. They wouldn't let us on the bus, actually, because it was so stinky.
It was off the bus. I remember. that was the trip that I proposed to Rachel, and her and I had to go on a separate thing because she was pregnant and they wouldn't allow her back on the tour bus. Do you remember that?
Oh, I did not know about that.
We had to. We left. We took a cab from like northern Phuket to southern Phuket just to like get her flight back, and then I met up with you guys after she left, and so she had to go. She's pregnant. She couldn't get on the bus. Her and I went somewhere else because she couldn't stay in the resort. It was crazy. But the durian was so good. Cool. Well, this feels like we really got between the cracks this week. Do you have anything else?
Not so much. Like, it's just like the foods and everything is so fascinating.
Yeah, this is exactly what, for you guys, like, this is exactly what we want. We'd just be like, our connections to tea and China and our experiences with it. So thanks for hanging for another episode of Between the Cracks. We'll catch you next time. Peace.